Today we are joined by John Tointigh, founder of 406 Resources, www.406resources.com, and you are from Chickasha, Oklahoma.
That is correct. We're about
All
30
right.
miles southwest of Oklahoma City.
All right. I think I got that one right. Did I say that right?
You did. Nailed it.
All right.
My
Good.
name and town in the same
Well,
sentence. That's impressive. Never happens.
you spelled them out for me, so that helped. Um, so 406 Resources, their goal is to be the single contact and the total resource for your dental office. And they offer three basic categories: consulting, front desk and HR, and marketing and advertising. And he is promoting on Deals for Dentists. Receive 3 post-training phone or video coaching sessions, a free new patient call training session, and initial consultations are always free. Also, mention the Deals for Dentists podcast, and John will write a 30-second script for a video or commercial for free. So that is pretty cool. So first of all, I love the name, 406 Resources. I'm from Boston. Ted Williams hit 406 in 1941, and they had the 406 Club at Fenway. So, around here, we'd say that's wicked awesome. And you're all right in my book. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, the Red Sox Nation is strong down here in Oklahoma for me, especially. So that is exactly the reason we named it 406, was for that feat in 1941. Just looking for a way to, appropriately name the company. And obviously, with as many resources as we try and offer a dental office, 406 made as much sense as anything.
Now, you have, is it 5 children? Is that right?
I do. Yeah, my wife and I have 3 children of our own biologically. They're appropriately named. Now, again, as a Red Sox fan, I have a Gehrig and I have a Maris, but I also have a Boston.
There you go.
I felt like kind of offset. And then my wife and I recently adopted 2 small children. They're a brother sister. We were contacted, never looked into fostering or adopting, just, randomly contacted by DHS, which is, from what I understand, they do from time to time. And my wife and I said, we're capable and we're able, I think. I think it would be selfish of us if we said no. And so now we have a Nolan and Caroline. Caroline, just for the reason you think it is.
8th inning.
It's it. That's exactly right.
That's right. Sweet Caroline, baby.
Yes, sir.
So now, did you adopt? Are they from Oklahoma?
They are. They are from a town on the Oklahoma-Texas border, about a 2.5-hour drive from here.
And how old are all these kids?
Well, my oldest, Gehrig, is 18. He's now a freshman in college. He went to play at a junior college baseball, something he was really wanting to do, and got some opportunities and liked this particular one. I've got a 15-year-old, Boston, who is a sophomore in high school, and my 10-year-old, Maris, is a 5th grader. Nolan is now in kindergarten, and Caroline is 4, and she's still in preschool. So she runs around and gets to play a lot all day.
So you have your hands full. I have 2 kids, and I can barely get anything done at home. And you work from home, so you must. Hopefully, the older ones help the younger ones and give you a little break.
Yeah, Boston's terrific. He bathed the kids. When Caroline, before she was potty trained, he'd change her diapers, and when she gets older, you're not gonna be able to get within 100 feet of her if those brothers are around.
Yeah, that's right. So you talk a lot about baseball, and I feel like dentistry is a lot like baseball. There's a lot of stats and numbers and strategy. Dentists need to know their numbers. You need to know your stats, like certain KPIs or key performance indicators, like the value of a new patient, your treatment plan, acceptance rate, reappointment rate, new patient conversion rate. the value of chair time. All these stats are so important. So did you bring a lot of your baseball knowledge into your consulting dental offices world? Did those worlds collide?
When you ask that question, it's awesome. And, you and I did not set this question up at all, but that's exactly right. Baseball is a big part of my life, obviously. And, like you said, with dental offices, you've got to pay attention to, certain statistics, but then there are times whenever, sometimes your gut instinct and your emotion, plays a big role in that. And obviously you have to kind of prepare yourself, know your team members, so whether if you've got a front desk crew and hygiene, or any assistants in the office, associate dentist, I mean, you guys have all got to be pretty much on the same page and work together as a team. I think that part of it is super important. Obviously, I think most guys would know that. But then, like you said, the numbers are very important because they'll also help guide you on, where you might need to train a certain, part of your office to improve a little bit. So yeah, that's exactly what it is. Great
So
connection.
it's you have a staff which is kind of like your team, and it all starts from the top. The dentists, the decision makers are, they're the kind of the managers, and then you have the whole team, and everyone's got to be on the same page. And if somewhere you're getting stuck or someone's not, you know, pulling their weight, then you have to try to fix the situation and go from there. Um,
Managing is, and being the dentist or the owner, and being the manager, you're right. The connective tissue there is, it's that manager's job to put everyone in the best position to be as successful as they can, because if they're managed to do that, then that of course, strengthens the entire team and gives everyone a better outcome. For an example, let's say you've got a couple of hygienists. You've got one who's tremendous at connecting with new patients. You have someone who's on the same page as you when it comes to recognizing your philosophy on diagnosing decay and other things, and she's just awesome at kind of bringing all that into first full circle. So when the doctor comes in, it's kind of a slam dunk. And when you're treatment planning and getting treatment acceptance, like you said, getting those numbers up. And you might have another hygienist who is, just she loves to clean teeth, and the people love her, and they come back to see her every single time, every 6 months for their recare. And so recognizing what you have there in your team and putting them in positions to succeed is a huge deal, because obviously not all players are or hygienists or other team members are cut from the same cloth.
yeah, I guess you really need to communicate with them and find out everyone's strengths and weaknesses and put them in the right position to succeed. Um, I was reading on your website, you have three main services that you offer. You have marketing, you have HR and staffing, and then you also have consulting. Is that right? Can you take us through each one of those?
Sure. And
Marketing is you, right? You're in charge of marketing.
correct. So the way 406 really kind of came to be, so if you don't mind, I'll just tell this story, is, I started out in the LASIK field. I was a marketing manager for a laser eye surgery practice. And it was my job to kind of figure out, like, okay, how can we go toe to toe with these other offices? I mean, they were heavily marketing. And so kind of had to figure out a way to get us the same type of exposure. And the way I did that was to say, you know what, rather than throw a bunch of money going to the same places that these people are already in, let's go somewhere else that's going to give us a fair amount of reach. So all these guys are on, sports radio shows, radio, and just commercials in general. And so we thought, rather than try and outspend them there, let's go and try it on TV. It's not much more expensive, and it really took off. And we did some other things, billboards, and in-house marketing. And I got to where I was getting phone calls from other places trying to hire me for their LASIK practice. And so I thought, well, if I'm going to do that, then why not try, just doing my own marketing company? So Black Horse Marketing was formed, and I was approached about 9 years ago about doing that in dentistry. And so I went and just applied some of those same principles that I had worked with in the LASIK market. And a dentist that I was connected with said, "Hey, you should get on Dental Town and look around." And I started looking around in all the different threads and saw that a lot of dentists complained that they didn't like, for one, the practice management or consulting companies charged, a huge amount of money. They tied you into contracts. You got training from them, but it didn't include anything about marketing. So they had to get connected to somebody else for that. And, just so I thought, well, why not make a company that can help address a lot of those issues? And my wife manages a dental office here in Chickasha. It is a three-doctor practice. They've got 30 employees now. It's a $7 million practice a year. It's a huge operation, and that thing is a well-oiled machine. And so, utilizing my wife's knowledge, she takes care of the front desk part of it for any consulting that we do, because obviously that's a big part of a practice. Most doctors aren't all that in tune with everything that goes on at the front desk because they're focusing on dentistry, which is what most dentists got into the business to do, is to take care of people and not necessarily run an office. So she handles a big part of that, and another dental friend of mine, Dr. Greg Hebert in Lowell, Arkansas. Um, he handles kind of the clinical side of consulting, gives dentists an opportunity to talk to someone who speaks their language, who's kind of been there, done that, not only in the past, but also currently, because that's another issue that I've seen uh, dentists have with consultants is, I'm going to listen to somebody who sits behind a desk who might be a great business person, but they've never spent a day in dentistry, or if they have, it's been years since they've been in an office. And with Kelly and with Dr. Hebert, they're in dental offices currently. So they're working through this pandemic. They're growing and changing with the industry and the technology that's moving so fast nowadays. So when we consult people, we can gladly say that you can consider the source. And we're folks that are legitimately in dentistry currently as of today.
So I just want to take a step back. You said you started with LASIK.
Mm-hmm.
How different was marketing for a LASIK group? I'm assuming that most patients, they have two eyes. They get one done, maybe they get the other done, but there's not much recare or recall. Maybe they have some post-op visits, but then that patient, unless they are having another issue, they may not be seen again. Whereas in dentistry, it's all about the repeat customer and the hygiene. Can you talk about the differences between the two um, professions, and how you would market differently?
Oh, sure. There are, in this particular practice that I was in, there was obviously the ophthalmic side of it, that was the LASIK part. And then they had an optometry side of it as well, because obviously not everyone is a good candidate for LASIK surgery. If their
Mm-hmm.
corneal thickness is not there, or if they've got keratoconus, um, or too much of an astigmatism, it makes it difficult to do surgery. People would just, remain in glasses because they couldn't afford to get a clear lensectomy. So they do have basically two different sides. Obviously, the higher retail side of things, which is the surgery part of it, or then like the recare and dentistry, to me, that comparatively speaking would be the optometry side of it. So people that come in every 6 months, get their eyes checked, get their glasses adjusted, or get new glasses in general. So there are two similarities to that. But obviously, when it came to the LASIK side, that was what people were most interested in getting.
Mm-hmm.
On the dentistry side of that, that might be more the cosmetic side of things. What we saw during that time, and I'm seeing it now in dentistry, is even in a depressed economy, at times where people are struggling a little bit, people will spend money on themselves. You know, they can get rid of glasses so they can go to the job interview and not feel like, they are looked at different. I mean, there's people just really did not enjoy having to wear glasses. They wanted to wear, stylish sunglasses when they drove around or went outside. And so there was a huge draw for those people. And same thing for dentistry. People, I'm sure you've seen, obviously people will talk to you like this. They won't smile a lot because they feel self-conscious about the way that their smile is. They may have just let their mouth go in a way, just not going in and seeing a dentist. And they get to a point where they need a lot of work done. And so when it comes to marketing or advertising that, whether it's a LASIK doctor or whether it's a cosmetic dentist, what we would do is we want to introduce a potential patient to the doctor. People love doing business with people they like. So we always, elevate the status of, that particular doctor, whether, like I said, no matter what the practice is, and just show people like this is who's going to work with you. And you make them feel comfortable, like we have the best technology, which was a big deal in the LASIK field. For
Mm-hmm.
dentistry, it's pain free, it's comfortable, it's easy, because most people in America, they have some sort of anxiety about going to the dentist. So the more comfortable you can make them feel, the better they feel about the doctor they would be working with. Makes it easier to advertise to those folks.
So you try to create more of a kind of a personality um, for that doctor, so patients can kind of see who you are as a person and not just the person who's going to be performing the dentistry on you. Because I know when we post on our social media, we don't get many responses when it's just about dentistry. But if it's me posting about my family or some fun things we did at the office, like a office party, we get so much response and so many comments and likes. So people want to see the personality behind you and not just what kind of dentistry you can do. Um, Now, was it sounds like LASIK was extremely competitive back then, or still is? And did you get in on it early? Was it booming then? And how did you create the marketing to kind of stand out um, from the competitors?
Right. So the LASIK market at that time was booming. And the thing is, and I'm by no means, somebody who's, invented anything. It was just the thought process of, you've got all these other LASIK doctors talking about, their technology. I mean, obviously price was a big point at that time. And, for us, it was just really simple. We, created a commercial that, like I said, just presented our doctor. And, we showed that we had technology, that it was very easy to do. The price point was very simple, and, free exams. So we basically tried to appeal to, four different personality types, which, depending on, whom you may have, listened to as far as any other podcasts. I mean, there are people out there that talk about the different personality types. I mean, for me, I do what's called a best. Some people have one that's called a disc, DISC. And so we try to make sure that we touch on things in commercials that talk to each of those personality types to get them interested. And when you're able to do that, we found that that's what's been most optimal.
Now, getting back to 406, now do you just market for dentists or other health professions?
No, so for 406, for me as the marketer, again, Black Horse is still its own separate and viable entity. So that is, yes, open up to other medical professionals as well. And like I say, for me as 406 Resources, as the founder of it, I mean, I have that with Kelly and Dr. Heber. And, so basically Black Horse is that part of 406.
But 406 is just focusing on dental offices.
Right.
Okay.
406 is just for dental offices.
And now, so you're the head of the marketing department of 406. Um, do you customize it for each office and their needs, and whether they're rural or urban or suburban?
Right.
Um, how does that work?
Yeah, the answer is absolutely yes. Because again, I talked about some of the complaints that I'd seen on Dental Town. I mean, they just get these cookie cutter programs where a consulting company would come in and say, "You've got to do this for 12 months. It's X dollars, for the year." And it's kind of doctors felt forced into this particular, little lane that they weren't all that comfortable being in. And so the idea for us was to absolutely make that more customizable. Like we want to try and build from the base that you have already. So that way you don't start to hate going into your own office every day. It's kind of like going to a personal trainer. You and I go to the same person. We're probably going to come out with two different programs. We're going to come out with probably two different suggestions on how we eat because that's what's going to be best for us. So,
Mm-hmm.
like you're saying, if it was a super dense area like New Orleans, is going to be completely different than what you might get in Pocatello, Idaho. Uh, and so the so as far as the way we approach the marketing part of it, that's an absolute yes. But as far as what we do inside the office, also matters.
Mm-hmm.
So um, I've seen a lot where someone hires a consultant, they pay him four, five, $6,000 for a day to come in, talk to the employees. They give them a list of 10 things like, hey, this is what you all should be doing. And even the doctor says, well, I want to take out 4, 7, and 8, and the rest I'm going to take. And because they didn't like what it wasn't for them. This doesn't apply to us. So what
Mm-hmm.
we try and do is do things that absolutely are specifically for that office.
Now, do you essentially create a plan or a treatment plan for that office, and you take into account, do you do a an extensive interview process with the owner and what they're looking for, and their needs? Do they want TV and radio ads, billboards? Is that all just based on your analysis of that office and the needs of the particular office?
Right. So what we would do is absolutely have a long chat with that doctor, and get an idea from our conversations because it would certainly take more than one to get an idea for what the needs might really be. Sometimes we have seen where a doctor says, I've been advertising this and it's garbage. And what they don't know is how many people have hit their website. They don't know how many new patient calls that they've gotten, cancellations, any of those things. Like you said, you got to, pay attention to those numbers. So their phones may have been ringing off the hook, and your front desk person, whomever answers the phone, is fumbling that around. And rather than taking control of the conversation and booking the appointment, they're just kind of letting people hem haw around and ask a bunch of questions and letting the phone, whomever's calling, lead them around, and then nothing winds up happening. And so it really wasn't the marketing. It was, somebody at front desk needs to be changed, but the doctor thinks it's the marketing. So in the conversation, we start to ask a lot of questions, and they may or may not know the answer, but sometimes that is an indicator for us to say, okay, well, maybe you should take a look at this before we proceed and start to do
Mm-hmm.
anything else. Because the last thing
Yep.
we want to do is, focus on something and have a doctor spend money on it, and that really wasn't what the problem was to begin with. And another part of it is, the doctor has to be prepared to relinquish a little bit of control and understand, like, I do have some issues that do need to be addressed, and so I've got some problems, and I need to let these folks come in and do what they can do. And I think that's hard to relinquish that kind of control and say that I've got an issue. But I think with talking to Dr. Hebert or Kelly, people that are working in dentistry, they have a tremendous pulse on what issues might be just based off of those conversations.
Yeah, dentists need to take a really good look in the mirror and figure out, you know, what is it that is going on in the office? Do you need to implement some changes? What are the pain points? Do you have a great marketing strategy and the phone's ringing, like you said, but we're not closing the the appointment on the with the phone skills? So it's all connected and becomes one machine that but like you said, dentists need to really take a good look at their office, and the first step is to recognize that there could be a problem if they want to get a better system. um, Now, do you do all forms of marketing? Do you do social media, web design, billboards, radio, TV, video, copyright? What are your what do you focus on, or do you do it all?
Well, no, we do it all. When it comes to all those different aspects, I do have different people in place for that.
Hmm.
Obviously, the most popular is going to be search engine optimization, web design, social media marketing. Those are the ones that are most popular with dental offices because they generally are, quite affordable, compared to some other things. And what we do on that end is kind of the same thing when a doctor calls 406. Again, we have a long conversation and find out what's going on. So when it comes to the website of those things on marketing, same type of thing. Long conversation, get to know the doctor, the office, the philosophy. And so when we write content for the website and the search and try and optimize obviously search engine, uh, we write it. It's original content. It's hopefully pretty close to your own vernacular, so it appears as it's coming from you. We'll reach out and say, hey, what do you want to talk about? Is there something going on in dentistry that we could blog about? You give us a few talking points, and again, we take how well we know you personally and write content so that way everything is changing, it's remaining original, and there's no cookie cutter pictures that we grab from this place that we used for Dr. Hebert in Lowell, Arkansas last week. It went off really well, so now we're going to do that for Dr. Block, and that just winds up hurting both of you.
Hmm.
So when it comes to that, that's what has been most popular, and that's how we operate. So again, same type of deal, long conversation to get to know you, and again, the culture of your office. So that way, when we do post things, it's original, and it again appears it's coming strictly from you, but you're not having to take the time to sit down and write, 2 to 500 word blog. You just give us some talking points, and we take it from there.
I see. Now, does Google know with their algorithm whether it's original content or it's organic, whether you wrote it or I wrote it? How does that work with SEO and Google Analytics?
Well, without getting into the too much of the finer details, because when we get to that, that's probably a better question for our Google team, our SEO team. But the answer to your question is, first of all, Google's algorithm's always changing,
Hmm.
and during the shutdown, Google changed a lot of things and just said, hey, listen, we're having a lot of issues with the shutdown. So right now, we can't guarantee that the search engine optimization is working as the way it should. Just be cognizant of that. Now, I haven't seen that in a little while, but um, in a normal online world, Google is able to recognize that the content is original and organic, and it's not coming from multiple websites. This say just a paragraph of verbiage about a procedure. Let's say you're talking about sedation dentistry. Um, so unless someone's completely plagiarized what we're doing, it shouldn't be something that is unoriginal.
So
So
I
I
can't
can't
just
just
cut
cut
and
and
paste
paste
from
from
Wikipedia.
Wikipedia.
That's that's that's
That's
not
You
not
going to
going to
fly.
could,
fly.
but it's going to hurt you in the long run because Google's going
Yeah.
to know they're going to recognize that this was ripped off from Wikipedia, or this was ripped off from another dental website, or from the ODA, or wherever. Like I said, so Google's really smart and really good at what they do, and they do punish a lot of folks whenever they get a bunch of unoriginal content. They just kind of hide it a little bit.
Now, I imagine content is one of the most important things with SEO, and engagement as well. So you're creating organic or original content, but you want that content to be engaging so that patients or anyone out there sees it, they're liking it, they're commenting on it, sharing it. Is that right?
Right. And, you also want to keep your information fresh. If you add a procedure or if you improve technology somewhere, we're going to bug you just to say, hey, listen, we should probably freshen things up a little bit. Maybe let's change out some of the pictures because, you get rewarded for, paying close attention to your online presence. Hey, let's boost up a blog a little bit. Let's add some new videos. So, yeah, it's not only just about the content being original, but it's also refreshing it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that way you're getting something new and something different, and not the same old, same old. Because every new patient's journey is different. They might go to the website like, I really like this guy, but I'm super afraid to go in. And they revisit your site again in a couple of weeks, and you got a new video up. Like, oh wow, I really like that video. He really seems like a nice guy. And they come back a little bit later, and there's a new blog post up that speaks to them. And
Mm-hmm.
finally, at that point, they might make that phone call that they've been afraid to make for who knows how long. Could be years generally. So, I mean, there's a lot of good reasons as to why you would keep your content fresh and new, like you said, to keep people engaged. And because, again, you might have someone trolling your website or your social media pages, um, just to kind of keep an eye on things and build up the courage just to call.
So if you actually used a blog that you wrote, let's say your office wrote a blog or a social media post or a video, let's say a year ago, but you freshened it up and changed it, um, you can actually reuse that with a new, fresh content, and that'll actually help you.
So when it comes to blogs, like I said, we ask the doc, like, what do you want to talk about?
Mm-hmm.
And again, we'll write something out that, again, is for what we know of that doctor, to be as much of coming from you as possible, and let you, if you want to make some small edits here and there to keep it fresh, then that's no problem.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a video or a commercial that has worked like gangbusters, and you're like, wow, let's hang on to that one. We can reuse that later on down the line, because obviously you don't want to just flood people with a million videos and lots of stuff to read. Like, you want to make it pretty concise, get your point across,
Mm-hmm.
and not lose the reader.
Now, do you also help with reviews and social media reviews? Let's say I got a bad review. Are you able to help out with a bad review, or is it can you actually contact Google? Or some people say that actually having a bad review um, gives you some credibility, and you just bury it with good reviews. What are your thoughts on a bad review?
Right, exactly. So, on just like you said, on a bad review, I mean, depending upon what it is, I mean, it's kind of a loaded question, really, depending on what the complaint is. If it's just an egregiously made up complaint just to try and get you to react to them and give them something that they want, that's one thing. I've seen doctors react where they basically send them a nicely worded legal letter that says you better take that down or we're going to have a
Mm-hmm.
problem. And there might be times where that's necessary, but if somebody comes in and say, oh, they were super high priced or whatever, you simply respond with, something nice. Don't refute, because I mean, last thing you want to do is obviously refute how they feel. I mean, their feelings are their feelings, but you respond to them and you just move on generally. But obviously, kind of a case by case basis, really.
Yeah, I had to dismiss a patient because they kept refusing x-rays, and I even said, I'll take them for free. We need to have them so I can diagnose you. And they ended up writing a bad review. But the confusing part was they gave me 5 stars. It was a negative review, but I got a 5-star review, on Google. But I didn't engage with, because I could tell they were looking for, an online battle. So I just kind of left it alone. And then we wrote something very neutral later on about our X-ray policy and the need to diagnose, and something very neutral. But it's a tricky game, the social media.
Yeah, you get a bad review. I mean, it's very, very easily taken personally on your end.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, you did the very best that you could to appropriately diagnose, so you could, take the best care of them that you could. And because they didn't want to agree to X-rays, you weren't able to do that. And they go up there and like you said, give you a bad review. And like I said, it's super easy to take that personally. But it's always best, to take the high road whenever you can. Like you said, writing a good neutral review or a response to that, without saying, hey, well, you didn't want X-rays, how am I going to diagnose you? And just kind of put the blame back on them.
Mm-hmm.
Having a response that's well worded is obviously going to win out in the long run, like you said, and also get drowned out by all of the other good reviews that you had.
Now, one other question about marketing. We had a campaign where we had kiosks set up in CVS, the local CVS here in Acton, and we had a different phone number on the kiosk so we could track it. Do you have what's your system for that? Let's say we have a billboard, we have a kiosk at CVS, we have a commercial on TV or radio. How do you track all of this? And do you recommend different phone numbers for tracking?
Okay, so the first thing I'll answer is your last question. Using phone tracking. So let's say you have a patient that calls your office, and the person who manages your phone answers and asks, "How did you hear about us?" And that patient saw the kiosk at CVS. I was like, "Oh, that's cool. Let me go Google and look him up real quick." And they go through the Google and they look around, and they click on your website. They go to your Facebook page, and really just try and get as much background as they can about you. And they see the pictures and videos of you and your family, and like, wow, he just looks like a really down to earth dude. And they're like, "Oh, what's his number again?" And then just go back to Google
Mm-hmm.
and find you that way. I mean, how are you going to really appropriately track that when the kiosk was the proximate cause or the proximate trigger for them, but they went all these other places that all have different phone numbers?
Right.
And so whenever, let's say you have an ad rep for something, they come back and like, "Hey, let's renew this contract for these kiosks." You're like, "Oh, that stuff didn't work, man. All these people called me off of this or that," but it's not appropriately credited. And so my personal belief is, if you can get a good, easy phone number to remember, that's going to be the best thing for you.
Mm-hmm.
Use that everywhere, because if it's like, "Oh, what was that number?" It was, and boom, they remember it forever. So I'm not a big fan of using the call tracking. How are you going to appropriately track it? Is the other question. There's a couple of answers. I guess it's depending. If you're a new office, you're opening up, you got 0 patients, or you bought a practice that's never advertised before, how am I going to track it? Well, I would hope, first of all, that you get a good website, you get that good base built up. So when people come and look you up on Google or go to your website or Facebook page, there's going to be some good information for them to see.
Mm-hmm.
So you're like, all right, well, now I want to do, a Google ad campaign. And so you kick off the ad campaign and you let your front desk say, "Hey, we're starting this ad campaign on Facebook. Let me know what kind of traffic we see. Are we going to get a bunch of, Facebook messages? Is our phone going to ring? Are we going to get emails? Let's monitor that." And you do that for a while, and you get a little bit of a jump in new patients. And I go, "Okay, well, that's all right. Well, then what else can we do? Let's do a billboard." And you do a billboard, Does that increase the phone traffic? Let's do a radio commercial. Does that increase? So you should be able to honestly feel the difference when you launch something. And where I'm a little bit different than some people might be is, they might buy a package like, hey, we get, 125 commercials for, X dollars. That sounds like a really good deal. Well, let's just do that. Put it on the radio or put it on TV, and they put it on a schedule basically wherever they can fit these commercials in, and they're not putting them in a schedule that's going to be optimal for your office. And so you get just a really low pulse off of it. And you think, well, radio doesn't work, TV doesn't work, or whatever that medium is, rather than having someone that designs an ad for you who, takes the reins and tells the TV or radio station, like, I only want these ads to run on these days at these times. And let's make it happen. And so when you launch things, you can layer it in and you can feel the difference as you go. If you're a practice and you've been running TV or radio, or you've been, on Facebook, and, you've been running all these different campaigns, and you don't really have kind of any control over it, then you can kind of scale it back down and kind of squeeze some of that advertising into certain time frames and just pay attention to it that way. Trust me, when the phone's ringing off the hook and you're a busy office, the front desk people are going to know it. They're going to be able to feel the phone's ringing more and more because they're staying busy. They're talking to people on the other end, and these are new patient calls, and so we see an increase of those. But the other part of it is you're going to have to track it too. Any new patient call you get, let's write it down. Who answered the phone? Did they book, yes or no? What was the referral source that they mentioned? And those are honestly the best ways to keep track of it. I know it's going to be asking the doctor and the front desk to do a little bit more work, but it's generally how I would recommend that an office do it. Because just like we mentioned before, going to a personal trainer, you go in, if you rely solely on the scale to tell you how things are going, you're going to be disappointed a lot of times. But what you don't notice is that maybe you're sleeping better. Your clothes fit differently. You have more energy throughout the day. Like, if you ignore those things and just focus on the scale, like I say, you're going to be disappointed. If you focus on just what phone number is working or not working, and you're not seeing the big picture, again, very easy to be disappointed.
Yeah, I think ultimately patients, they're going to, if they find you at CVS or a billboard, they're going to go and Google you or go on your Facebook or eventually go onto your website, which is going to have your, your regular phone number. So what you mentioned kind of dovetails me into the HR and staffing portion of your company. We were talking about, you could have the greatest marketing campaign in the world, but if your staff can't close that phone call and convert them into a new patient, then it's worthless. So I like the fact that you said, I was writing that down to for accountability. Each staff member, when there's a new patient, write down who took the phone call, did the patient schedule, and how did that patient find us? I think there's your tracking right there. Also, like I said, it creates the accountability for that staff member. Are they closing these new patient calls? If not, how do we help them? Where do they need help? Where are they getting stuck? What questions are they not able to answer? Can you go into that portion of your company, the HR and staffing, and how important phone skills are?
Absolutely. So like you've prefaced, when you get a new patient phone call, that's the most important individual to the practice at that moment is the potential new patient. So obviously you want to know a few things about that person. Obviously, how did you hear about us is super important. So it kind of gives a little bit of credit to your marketing, which again, it may or may not be the proximate reason they called. It may just have been the last place that they visited as far as website, or maybe they just saw the commercial, for the 10th time, and they're like, I got a call. And then the person answering the phone's got to take control of the phone call. They've got to be enthusiastic. They've got to be like, wow, I'm so glad that you called us. Make that person feel important right away, rather than getting someone to answer the phone and saying, thank you for calling, Premier Dental Care. Can you hold, please? Terrible way to handle it. It's like, hey, that's the phone rings. That's important. So they've got to be trained in a way to see it from a new patient standpoint. I know a dental office can get busy and you're feeling overwhelmed, but when that phone rings, and it's a potential new patient, you got to make them feel like the most important person there is at that time. And so there's certainly checks and balances that go into that. Like you said, some accountability. We got to take down, who called, when they called, who answered, where their referral sources from, did they book, yes or no, why didn't they book? And, those numbers have got to be given to the doctor on a weekly or maybe a monthly basis, so they can kind of see where, some of those issues might be. Is it the marketing, or is it the person answering the phone? So
yep.
The HR end of things, that's what Kelly's just tremendous at doing, is, helping someone, training them to take control of that phone call, and leading them into, booking an appointment before they hang up the phone. And then, of course, tracking that patient from the time that they book. Do they cancel, or did they come in? And when they came in, what did that person do? Did they just come in for a cleaning, or did they come in and want to get 2 implants? And so that'll help you keep track of the value of those new patients.
Mm-hmm.
You could also look back from there and say, okay, well, this person's they came in and got 2 implants. They saw us on TV, or they heard about us on the internet. And so you can kind of start to assess the type of person you're reaching with your advertising, depending on what the medium is as well. If you really want to get, get down in way behind the curtain and track some serious numbers.
So your wife, Kelly, handles all of the HR and staffing portion of your company?
Right. And like I said, her portion of it, she has a master's in HR from the University of Oklahoma. And she, got this job here in Chickasha, and quickly elevated into the office manager role. And so she does everything from, like I said, answering the phones and working with new patients, verifies insurance, works the AR list, books treatment, and does the financing. And the best part of it, I guess, is that, she's also not afraid to have tough conversations. She will certainly talk to the doctor in a way that, like, hey, listen, you need to look at it this way. We're not going to just change because you feel like this is what's going on at the front desk. And so she will tell you the truth, good news or bad, but she will absolutely have that conversation. And she has a terrific pulse on that practice. And like I said, it's a $7 million a year practice. So even during a pandemic year, they're still on pace to hit that number. And, I think, even the doctor in that office will, give quite a bit of credit to her and how she helps run that place.
Now, does she offer the staff scripts for phone calls, or is it just training and follow-up training? What's the best way to approach phone skills?
I don't mind, the scripting part of things, just as a guideline. But like we mentioned before about customization, I would rather the verbiage be, coming from the person who's answering the phone, or the people that are working in the office. So rather than you read in, thank you for calling today. No, let it be from you. Let it be natural. And like I said, it's just something that you just kind of have to work on. And because there's a whole process to, again, the patient's journey from, being stimulated by the marketing and advertising, to calling, to booking, to going through, the process in the office as a new patient, to being presented treatment, to scheduling, and then to delivering the treatment, and even afterwards, and following up with that patient to make sure that they're doing well. Hey, can we schedule you for your cleaning coming up? And I mean, it is just an ongoing process. And so it's really not something that you can script per se, as it is just knowing what needs to be done and where that person is in the process.
Yeah, I imagine the phone is one of the most, or the most important piece of equipment in the office. You could have that $100,000 CAD CAM machine, but if you can't get the patient in the chair to actually use it, then it's worthless. So that phone is so important. Do you record phone calls for training purposes? And how long typically? I'm assuming everybody is so different, but do some staff members get it right away? Others take longer to help train them. Some members are like, we've had some staff that have been working in our office for 20 years, so they're on autopilot. And now if you start to introduce a new way of answering the phone, that's going to take time.
Absolutely. And that's another good segue as far as, talking to the doctor. They have to, have a good hard look in the mirror and say that we do have an issue. And it's going to take complete buy-in from the doctor first, because at the end of the day, like we mentioned before, you're the manager, you run this show. We're just a training crew, just trying to come in and help identify where some of the weaknesses or some of the blockages are in the office, and say, okay, this is what we suggest that you do to get this fixed. And if the doctor sits through the training with the front desk with us, and like you said, they're kind of on autopilot, and they're just kind of like, yeah, this is not really how I would want to do things or whatever. And the doctor just kind of rolls his eyes. Well, that's who they're looking to. They're looking to you as their leader. And if they don't see that you're bought in, then they're not going to buy in either. So again, that hard look in the mirror and say, I have got to swallow a little bit of pride, become a leader in the office, and by buying in, they're going to buy in. So it's going to come from the doctor just as much as it's going to come from the front desk people, and that's a part of where that accountability thing comes.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to help provide you with numbers, and you let off the podcast with talking about, hey, we've got to track all these things, and so with that accountability comes, with the buy-in from them, which is kicked off by the buy-in and the leadership from the doctor to begin with.
Yeah, good job descriptions, accountability, numbers. It's all so important. Can you train the staff to weed out crazy patients? I had a patient who, she got into the office, she sat in the chair, and she said that she needed to look into my irises to find out if I was the one, if I was going to be the dentist for her. So, she sat kind of sideways and looked me in my eyes, and I passed. I passed the test, and I was the one. However, I broke up with her. I gave her, I dismissed her as a patient because I wasn't a good fit. And so maybe that could have been handled on the phone before she got in the chair. But true story. So now you also have a consulting portion, a clinical consulting portion of your company, and that's run by Dr. Hebert. Hebert.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Okay, so again, at the end of the day, another component of things that I noticed on Dental Town was, again, like, consider the source. So for someone like Kelly, who works a well-oiled machine, she's very well versed in running a practice. She's gotten to a point where obviously she can see X-rays and see what kind of treatment should have been done on that particular day. It would have been very easy for you to do these 2 crowns or whatever. still very difficult for a practicing dentist to get someone like Kelly in front of them and have a candid conversation, because you got two individuals who are just not on the same level. Kelly knows a lot about running a dental practice, but she doesn't know how to diagnose well. She doesn't know the pressures of being $400,000 in debt coming out of dental school, and then buying a building and equipping it and getting it all set up. And I mean, it's hard and it's frustrating, and I need help in getting my practice off the ground and really getting it running. Well, that's a great position for Dr. Hebert to be in, because he's been there, he's done that. I think he's on his, third practice. He bought a practice out of school, and he worked with the selling doctor and just kind of slowly worked his way out of it. Then he bought another building and moved his practice into this other building, and then decided, I want to move to a completely different state, and started a practice from 0 patients, found a building, outfitted it, got it going. And so when you have a doctor who, again, says that I need some help, I want to bring in a consultant or a management team to kind of help get my practice off the ground, or right the ship per se, they can have those candid conversations with someone who has been in their shoes, and in some instances is absolutely currently in your shoes. Because again, having somebody who's in dentistry currently is obviously a huge help in having some of those conversations. And that's where Dr. Hebert comes in, and like, hey, how do you find your hygienist? What do you do with, what are you doing with your clinical team in your practice? This is what I'm seeing. And so when you have Dr. Hebert involved in that manner, he's a terrific guy to lean on, and even helping with diagnosis. Like, hey, I'm thinking about being more aggressive. Well, again, he can help guide through that. How he views technology, paperless or 100% digital or non-paper. So he's an awesome dude. He's very candid. He will tell you exactly what he thinks, and he's not going to sugarcoat anything, which may not always be the best for some people. But I mean, you're going to get an honest answer. And again, from a guy who's practicing in dentistry currently.
Now, why would, tell me, what's your typical dentist or dental office that's contacting you? Is it because their chairs aren't full, or their chairs are full but they're miserable, they're stressed, they're working hard, they're busy, but they're just not seeing the end rewards? Or is it brand new offices, or offices that just want to kind of get to the next level? Like, even Tom Brady had a throwing coach because he wanted to get 1% better. Tom Brady's now dead to me because he went to Tampa, but that's a different story. Who calls you? Is it all over the board? Is it the new practice owner? Is it the DSO? Is it the practice that just wants a little more efficiency and less stress? Who's contacting your company?
Well, as far as the DSO part of it now, I mean, that's not our niche. That's not our experience. And so, I mean, I would immediately, deflect that if we had that phone call. But the rest of it is pretty much all over the board. Primarily, Kelly is the one that, that people are most impressed by. And, a lot of the issues that doctors have is with their staff. I'm having an issue, with treatment planning from, my hygienist or my front desk person. I think that they're just awful on the phones, or, they have an issue finding someone that they like. Like, who do I need to hire for this particular position? And so that's really, the bulk of it is, what is it that Kelly can do for our practice? That's generally the most often asked question. Marketing is sometimes a component of that. But it just winds up being a byproduct necessity of what Kelly is able to find in another office. Like I said, it's generally employee generated, because you might have a super expressive lady who just loves talking to everybody and is everybody's best friend. But boy, she is terrible at AR. Well, it's because her personality doesn't dictate that's who should be running your numbers. Someone who's very task oriented, a statistical type personality, someone who just wants to get it done and just focus in on that. And they may not be the best person to be booking your new patient appointments. It's good to be cross-trained, but
Yep.
having the right person in the right position, as you mentioned, as the manager, giving them the best opportunity to succeed, so the entire practice succeeds.
And when that happens, it creates a lot less stress for the doctor. Well, thanks so much for joining us. Again, John Tointigh, he is the founder of 406 Resources, www.406resources.com. Go to Deals for Dentists and you'll find the promo, free new patient call training session. Initial consultations are always free, and receive 3 post-training phone or video coaching sessions. And if you mention this podcast, he'll even write a 30-second script for a video or commercial for free. Well, thanks so much for joining us, and let's be in touch and maybe touch base in about 6 months or so and find out what else you got going on and how you can help dentists.
Yeah, that'd be terrific. I appreciate you inviting me on here. I've really enjoyed it. Always good to talk about sports and correlating it to dentistry and teamwork, and that's what we're striving to do, is get everyone pulling on the same rope.
Well, if you're in the area and you're going to check out Fenway, let me know. I'll join you.
Hey, don't you threaten me with a good time.
Yeah.
I'll absolutely do it.
Sounds good. We'll be in touch.
All right. Have a great day.
All right. Take care.